We need to do something about that. Need to bend that out a little bit. I'm fighting a couple of leaks here, but fortunately they are not coming from the big crack that was in this water trough where I made the repair. I've got a leak here at the float, which is just dripping into the trough, and I'm not worried about it because that water's just going where we want water. And then I've got one that's down here at the drain. It's actually pretty hard to see the repair on the outside of the trough because I've got that side of the trough right up against the feeder, and the only reason for this is because I wanted to be sure that the trough drain was easy to get to, so that when I want to drain this trough and get it out of here, that's easy to do. All in all, everything seems to be holding together just fine on this trough, so I think I can start tearing out the old one. You can see this old tank's got some issues going on. We're gonna fix all of this stuff, and I am a little bit worried that once I get this torn out and cleaned up that it ends up being in a lot worse shape than I think it is, because I've already patched a couple of holes in this earlier in the year, and like 2 or 3 more popped up shortly after that. So it makes me think that this trough is probably not long for this world, but if I can just get one more winter out of it, I'll be happy. So the plan today is to get this thing pulled out of here, get it cleaned up, patched up, and then we'll see what other kind of things we can get into. That's what's going on today on Farmer Tyler Ranch. Well, I did what you're supposed to do, and I did shut this water off this morning, hoping that the cows would drink the trough down so that I wouldn't have quite so much to drain onto the ground. But I guess they weren't real thirsty this morning because they didn't drink too much of it. But now the trough is almost empty. I'm gonna have to take that float off. There's a little bit of a drop pipe there to kind of set the float height, and I need to remove all of that because once the trough is out of the way, that pipe will just be hanging down, and I don't want the cows to start rubbing on it and break it off, which is exactly what they would do if I don't do anything. The float's not looking too good. This water trough's closed. Goodness! Got it. So you can see what's happened here, where this mound in the middle of the puddle is, where the trough was setting. That used to be ground level, and over the years the cows have just tracked dirt out of here, I guess, or dug it out. Not really exactly sure how it happens, but it certainly does. So the plan here is to bring a couple loads of gravel in and build up a nice solid pad here where the trough is going to go, and then bring enough gravel to have a gravel pad all the way up to the concrete pad, so that in the wintertime when they're walking back and forth from the water to the hay feeder, they're not just making a muddy mess. If you look at the bottom of this trough, it's actually in pretty good shape on the bottom, which you would think that would be like the worst spot, right? But really where it's starting to develop pinholes is up here on the side. These are pretty easy to patch and fix, and then once I can bring some gravel, make a nice foundation for this to sit on, I think it's going to be fine. Once you clean it up with a wire wheel, you can really see how bad it is. Well, that pretty much takes care of the serious holes in this thing. I'll let this sit for a few days and then we'll set it back up and cross our fingers and hope that it lasts the rest of the winter. I am kind of curious about how long it's going to take the cows to realize that their water is here in the bale feeder now. And we'll find out here pretty soon, because after I feed them today, once they get done eating that hay, the first thing they want to do is come get a drink of water. I think just because the hay is a lot drier than grass, obviously it makes them thirsty. So we will see. Once one finds the water here, then the rest will come over to see what that one is doing, and we'll be fine. The next thing that I want to do today is set this trail camera up in the barn. Some of you will remember that last year I put a trail camera in the barn, and I don't know about you, but I was pretty impressed at how many different animals I caught on this thing. Who knew we had this whole little ecosystem here in the barn? We made it up here, and now I'm thinking, if I need to change any light bulbs, now would be a good time to do it. Seems like last year I had put the trail camera sort of like along this board here. This is like a 2x8 going down the length of the barn, and a lot of animals were using this as a walkway. So this might be a good place to try to put it again. As I recall, there's a little bit more activity towards the back of the barn, so we'll scoot back a little bit and get this set up. And while I'm crawling around up here, I see the cows are starting to figure out where their new water trough is. I think this looks like a pretty good spot. So if I can just tie the camera up like right here, I think that'll be good. Maybe down a little lower. That's the one thing I don't like about trail cameras. It's very difficult to aim them because there's not like a viewfinder that you can look through to set up your shot. You just kind of have to look at it and hope for the best. Let's try it right there. If it doesn't work good there, we can move it. All right, let's get down from here. I will say the square bale stacks were a lot easier to walk on. It's all good as long as you don't slip. I'm hopeful that by the time I post the next video, I'll have some good footage to show you guys off of the trail camera. And I think that'll be a good thing to make shorts about in the future, just kind of all the different things that I catch. I'm down here in the back pasture now. If you guys remember, about 9 or 10 days ago maybe, I aerated these cow trails and I spread a bunch of seed out here in hopes that it would sprout. And I was hoping that I would be able to walk down here today and see that starting to happen. As I look closely at the ground, I don't see a lot of seed on the ground anymore, but what I do see are a lot of bird tracks. I really have not noticed a lot of bird activity down here. I know there are some blackbirds, but definitely not enough to eat 400 pounds of seed. So they're getting some of it, and it's really easy, I think, for them to pick it out on the cow trail because there's really nothing to conceal it. The good news is that when I get off the cow trails and start going out into the undisturbed grass, I can find a lot of seed down on the ground out there. And over here on the half of the pasture that I got aerated, I have to assume that a lot of that seed went down in the aerator holes and the birds aren't going to be able to get it down there. So when I look for it on the grass, it's very hard, but I can find some, and I assume it's exactly the same for the birds. When they look for it out here, I'm sure they find a little bit, but it's concealed much better out in the grass. Plus, we have had some wind over the last couple of days, which I'm sure kind of helps work that seed down through the grass canopy, so to speak, down to the ground level or down to the dirt. So what have I learned from all of this? Well, I think maybe in the future, if I was to try this again, I would spread the seed first and then run the aerator over after that. And I think it would be wise to put some sort of a chain harrow or a drag harrow behind the aerator so that I could aerate and harrow the ground at the same time. That should help cover and incorporate some of the seed a little bit better than just spreading it out on the ground like I did. But I was just kind of curious to see if this would work. And who knows, it might still turn out that it does work. It's just, obviously, I can't go find every single seed out here and count them and figure out how many the birds have got. There's a very good chance that the birds have only gotten a very small percentage, but it's just in the very visible places where it's very noticeable to me. So I guess to sum up the update on this little experiment, not much is happening yet, but it does look like the birds are eating a lot of the seed. Not really the report I was hoping to give you. Looks like the cows are finally starting to make their way out of the pasture up to get a drink, so I'm very curious. I want to see how this is going. I know a couple of them have found that new water already, but they're probably, well, let's just go look. You guys confused? Please tell me you're not just drinking out of that puddle. I'm afraid some of these girls are confused, so what I'm going to do is open the float up on the trough here, and I think maybe when they hear that sound, that'll kind of trigger that response in their brain that, oh, there's water there. Quiet. That might work for a dog. I don't know if it'll work for a cow. See that? That's what almost all of them have done as I've been standing here watching them. They walk over to where the water trough usually is and they kind of get this like, oh, something's different. And then they hear that float running or they see someone else drinking out of it and they walk over and drink out of the new water. All right, who's ready for dinner? How do you get in there? Come on, get out of there. Let's go. Go under. No, no, don't do that. Belly. Hey, Belly, here. There we go. I think that's going to do it for this one. Interrupt me? Really? I think that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys, and I hope I'll see you again on Farmer Tyler Ranch.